Hello, back again on the Top Recap channel. This time I will tell a movie's entitled Next. Let's get straight into the storyline. The story begins by showing a magician named Chris Johnson, who often performs magic show attractions in Las Vegas. Chris performs magic shows using his stage name, Frank Cadillac. Chris can do magic tricks that we have often seen, ranging from bringing up pigeons to removing and moving an item. If you pay attention, Chris does look like an ordinary gentleman. Still, actually, he has a very extraordinary ability that is able to see all the possibilities that will occur for the next 2 minutes. But keep in mind that he cannot see the future of others randomly, unless Chris is near that person. That night, when Chris was doing a magic attraction, in the audience, there were 2 FBI agents, Kelly and his partner named Kava. Kelly had been feeling odd about Chris's abilities, and they were planning something that required Chris's powers. Chris is seen inviting one of the female audience members onto the stage. Chris then said that the woman's necklace would fall off because of the loose link, as if the magic just now was a trick, but in fact, Chris only knew what would happen for the next 2 minutes. After finishing his magic attraction, Chris relieved his fatigue by playing gambling at one of the casinos. Using his special powers, Chris managed to win the gamble several times without suffering a single defeat from the bookie. In order not to be suspected, Chris deliberately bet with a small amount. But from the control room, the casino manager Roybal suspected him and ordered the guards to arrest Chris. Not because they knew of his special powers, but because Chris won too often and was thought to be using his magic tricks. Chris also became more suspicious when he glanced right at the CCTV as if he could hear the conversation between Roybal and his colleagues in the surveillance room. Knowing that the guards would come soon, Chris left the table and was about to cash the chips to the counter. Not long after, a man arrived, and Chris knew that he intended to rob the counter and even kill the guard there. But before that happened, Chris immediately pushed him and took his gun. But it was Chris who was suspected because he accidentally held the man's gun. Chris calmly escaped from the place, of course, with his special abilities. To trick the guards, Chris hid in an area where the guards did not pass. Even wearing someone else's hat and turning his face away for a moment at the right time. Until Chris finally left the casino, he simply stole the sports car from the parking lot attendant. As seen from the casino's CCTV, Chris was recorded stealing someone else's car. Roybal also called the police to chase him, and fortunately Chris's car was still faster, until finally Chris saw that his car would be hit by a train if it crossed the tracks at a speed of 120 km/h. Knowing that, Chris immediately stepped on the gas pedal even deeper until the car was traveling 160 km/h when crossing the tracks. Chris managed to cross the train tracks with epic. After the incident, Roybal was taken by Kava to meet Kelly for information about Chris. Roybal explained that he had intended to catch Chris, but suddenly the magician glanced at the CCTV as if he could hear Roybal's conversation. From this explanation, Kelly concluded that Chris could not hear Roybal's voice through the camera, but Chris knew that he would soon be arrested. After the interrogation was over, Kelly invited Roybal to return to the casino again and forbade him to discuss the conversation with others. But when going home, Roybal was suddenly approached by 2 people. They forced Roybal to tell them information about Chris, but all Roybal knew was that the FBI was currently hunting Chris, and in the end, Roybal was immediately killed by the 2 people. The scene moves to Chris, who currently lives only with his uncle, who is considered like his own father. It is known that his uncle has known Chris's special abilities for a long time. His uncle advised Chris to stop engaging in criminal activities because every time Chris came to his place, he would always bring a new stolen car. Chris then told him about a woman named Liz, who was always in his vision. Even though he didn't know the woman, Chris could see Liz's future. And according to Chris, it is destiny. Soon, Kelly arrived after his team managed to track the GPS position of the car stolen by Chris. Without further ado, Kelly explained the current emergency situation, namely a group of Russian terrorists who managed to smuggle a nuclear bomb into America. Chris was also asked to use his strength to find the whereabouts of the bomb and the time and location of the bomb detonation. In addition, Kelly reminded him that Chris now had the opportunity to save many people, and the FBI promised to clean up Chris's criminal record for stealing a car at the casino. But Chris refused the offer because he just wanted to live normally and didn't want his powers to be known by many people. Chris also did not explain in more detail his ability to see only 2 minutes ahead, especially since people like Kelly usually exploit Chris's abilities as they please. Soon, the FBI troops came to raid the place. It turned out that everything we saw just now was Chris's vision before Kelly arrived, and now Chris knew what the FBI was coming for.
I missed him by seconds, didn't I?
Chris went to a restaurant where Liz would come to. Chris then uses his ability to approach her to open a conversation with Liz and not be considered a freak. Chris then started asking for coffee recipes, borrowing matches, and even offering Liz insurance, but everything failed.
Please.
Not long after, Liz's ex-boyfriend came to the place. It turned out that Liz's ex-boyfriend wanted to invite Liz to have a relationship again, but Liz refused. Not accepting the rejection, Liz's ex-boyfriend then behaved rudely. Through his 2-minute vision, Chris tried to get rid of Liz's ex-boyfriend and avoided all the punches. However, the incident made Liz feel sorry for her ex-boyfriend, and she told Chris to stop. So Chris decided to approach the two of them and deliberately took a beating from Liz's ex-boyfriend. The method worked well. Liz, feeling sorry for Chris, then sent her ex-boyfriend away. Liz then helped Chris, who was injured by Liz's ex-boyfriend's punch. Chris's plan was successful. He was able to get acquainted with Liz. Chris argued that he was resting at the restaurant because his car had just been stolen, even though he had to immediately go to the red flag area. Because of her pity, Liz also offered Chris to come in her car because Liz happened to want to go to the area.
Even if it does exist.
Not long after, Kelly and Kava arrived at the restaurant after getting information from Chris's uncle. The waiter and restaurant owner also explained that Chris had always come twice a day for the past week. Until finally on this day, Chris met with Liz and was about to go to Red Flag. Meanwhile, at his headquarters, the Russian terrorist boss ordered his men to kill Chris immediately. Although the Russian boss doesn't believe in his special powers, many people involved with the nuclear bomb are worried that Chris will ruin their plans. Before arriving at Red Flag, Liz, who is a teacher, stops by a rural school to give a gift to her student who has a birthday that day. They spent a few hours there and then continued their journey in the evening. At that time, it was seen that Liz began to be interested in Chris, not only because he was good at magic, but also because the words he said also often made Liz smile. They were forced to stay at the motel because a landslide hit the only route they had to pass. However, unlike most men who would take advantage of the situation, Chris chose to sleep in the car while Liz was in the room alone. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Kelly and Kava have found the car driven by Chris and Liz through CCTV cameras on the road. They will also speed up the arrest because the intelligence team has found the location of the Russian nuclear bomb storage in the Southern California area. The next morning, Chris was amazed when he saw the beauty of Liz, who had just come out of the bathroom wearing only a towel. Chris then compliments Liz's beauty and performs his romantic trick that makes Liz smitten. Meanwhile, outside, Kelly and her team are watching their motel from a distance, as well as the Russian terrorists. After that, Kelly met Liz, who was going into town to buy coffee. Kelly invited her to chat in the car with Kava while showing the CCTV video of Chris trying to prevent a criminal at the casino. Kelly also framed Chris by saying that at that time, Chris was robbing with his partner, but his plan failed, and he used Liz in the restaurant to escape from police pursuit. Hearing that, Liz was very shocked. Then Kava told her to give Chris sleeping pills, and the FBI would catch him soon. Kelly also reminded her that Liz could only pour the drug into the drink 2 minutes after Chris left the room. Of course, this method had to be done because, with his ability, Chris would not be caught by FBI agents just like that. In short, Liz returned to the hotel and told Chris to shower while preparing breakfast. After waiting for 2 minutes, Liz put sleeping pills in orange juice. While outside, Kelly and his team continued to watch the motel with the recording device that Liz had installed. Meanwhile, the Russian terrorist had also set up his sniper and targeted the motel.
Looks good.
You think so?
But Liz changed her mind before Chris drank the orange juice and immediately forbade Chris from drinking the juice. Liz then explained that earlier in the city, FBI agents came to her and said that Chris was a criminal and would be arrested after falling asleep on sleeping pills. But Liz didn't believe Kelly's words and wanted Chris to stay safe. Hearing that, Chris immediately turned on the TV, then left the hotel and drank another juice that did not contain sleeping pills, so that Kelly could hardly eavesdrop on their conversation and thought that Chris would soon fall asleep. After that, Chris also showed his special powers to Liz by saying the same words from the TV that would be heard every time he changed channels. It was done by Chris to prove that he had stopped the criminal in the casino before the man launched his robbery. How surprised Liz was when she found out that the man in front of her was not an ordinary magician, but had a special ability that was very accurate for the next 2 minutes. Chris then explained the FBI's plan to use his powers to thwart the detonation of a nuclear bomb smuggled by Russian terrorists. However, Chris could not help the FBI because he could only predict his future for the next 2 minutes. But somehow, Chris could see almost everything that would happen to Liz in the next 2 hours. After that, Chris gave Liz $10,000 and told her to leave immediately. Chris also asked Liz to leave the motel 45 seconds after Chris left the room and do what Chris had written on a paper. Chris promised he would see Liz again as soon as he solved the problem with the FBI. When Chris came out, he locked eyes with Kelly, who saw him from afar. Chris immediately ran away by jumping off the cliff. Kelly and her colleagues immediately chased Chris. And after 45 seconds passed according to the direction of Chris's writing on the paper, Liz started the car engine and ran it. Then she jumped out. The car immediately demolished the water tower and dropped wooden items and carts towards the cliff. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Russian sniper who had been on standby would shoot Chris right in the head, but Chris managed to avoid it thanks to his special abilities. It wasn't long before Chris met up with Kelly, who was waiting for him. Worried that Kelly would be killed by a large log, Chris immediately helped her. However, despite saving Kelly, Chris is captured because he is trapped in a woodpile. Meanwhile, Liz, who was on the run, was also kidnapped by Russian terrorists. At the FBI building, Kelly forces Chris to use his powers while watching the news about the discovery of a nuclear bomb in the Los Angeles area. The goal is to find the location where the bomb will explode. While watching the news, Chris suddenly sees Liz's fate in the future, where about 2 hours in the future, the terrorists force Chris to surrender and threaten to blow up Liz by tying a bomb to her body. Not long after, the bomb was finally detonated and immediately killed Liz. This made Chris shocked and apologized for putting Liz's life in danger. Chris then asked to be let out of the place because he couldn't get the information Kelly was looking for. Chris was finally taken to prison, but Chris easily paralyzed the security guards. Finally, he managed to escape and get out of the building. Kelly and his colleagues immediately chased Chris. Chris immediately headed to the location of Liz's murder, which would occur in 2 hours, namely on the rooftop of the parking lot. Kelly also promised to help, but Chris had to use his strength to thwart the nuclear detonation, especially since the person who had kidnapped Liz was a Russian terrorist who was related to the nuclear bomb. Chris agreed to help Kelly. Kelly then told his partner to cut off all communication currents 3 kilometers from the parking lot area. After that, Kelly told Chris to walk to the middle of the parking lot to lure the enemy sniper to shoot him, and obviously, Chris could dodge right before the bullet touched him. And because the sniper's location was known, he was immediately shot dead by the FBI team. After that, Chris used his power to look at the car's license plate that had brought Liz to the parking lot. When tracked, the FBI team immediately found out where the car was now, which turned out to be in the harbor near that place. At that time, the SWAT team was also mobilized to intercept the car with Chris's strategic direction. The police also kept the phone signal cut off in the area around the kidnapper's car because the bomb on Liz's body could be detonated easily with a cell phone call. As usual, all of Chris's predictions were correct, and now the SWAT team is fighting the Russian terrorists. Chris, Kelly, Kava, and several SWAT troops tried to save Liz, who was dragged to the ship by Russian terrorists. Again, with his special abilities, Chris managed to save the life of his colleague, who was almost hit by a bomb. Chris also tells from which direction the enemy will shoot. Chris then used a shadow trick to find Liz's whereabouts. At that time, he was repeatedly using his powers to find the most appropriate path to pass so as not to endanger his life, Kelly, and the SWAT troops. Finally, Chris managed to find Liz's whereabouts and immediately surrounded the Russian terrorist. Initially, the terrorist threatened to kill Liz if anyone dared to approach him. But Chris, who had seen all the possibilities in the future, managed to guess which direction the terrorist would shoot. Finally, Liz is saved by Chris. However, their struggle is not over yet because the location of the nuclear bomb is still unknown. Kelly then showed a map of possible explosions. Suddenly, Chris said that he had predicted wrong because he was too focused on saving and forgetting the search for nuclear bombs. And suddenly, the nuclear bomb exploded and destroyed the entire city. After the nuclear bomb explodes, we return to the motel where Chris and Liz are asleep. It turns out that everything we saw earlier was just Chris's vision because, as we know, Chris can see all the possibilities that Liz's future will have. After seeing the horrors that occur in the future, Chris immediately called Kelly and agreed to help the FBI thwart the Russian terrorist plan, but on one condition, that Liz should not be involved in the mission. Kelly was surprised that Chris suddenly wanted to help. Chris also told Liz that he would go to take care of something very important and would return immediately after finishing his business. Soon, Kelly came to pick up Chris, and their journey was about to begin to prevent the nuclear bomb from exploding. And the movie is over. Don't forget to click subscribe, like, and comment.